If you clicked on this video, there's a good chance something has started to bother you. Maybe you've been following the rules for years. Work hard, stay disciplined, do what you're supposed to do, and yet the results don't seem to match the effort. You see people grinding every day, pushing themselves harder and harder, yet their lives never really change. Meanwhile, other people seem to move differently. They don't look frantic. They don't look exhausted. Yet somehow they gain influence faster. They gain control faster. And eventually they gain something most people never reach. Freedom, that's usually the moment when people start asking a question that changes everything. What if the system most people are following was never designed to produce freedom in the first place? That question sounds uncomfortable. Because for most of our lives, we are taught to believe the system is fair. Work hard and you'll be rewarded. Be patient and things will improve. Stay disciplined and eventually you will succeed. But when you begin studying how large systems actually work, a very different picture starts to emerge. Most systems are not designed to maximize individual success. They are designed to maintain stability. Stability for institutions. Stability for organizations. Stability for structures that depend on millions of predictable participants. And predictable participants are extremely valuable to systems. They follow instructions. They perform tasks. They keep the structure running, but predictable participants rarely gain power. Power usually belongs to the people who understand the system itself. Because once you understand the structure, you begin seeing something that most people miss. Every system has incentives. Every structure rewards certain behaviors and discourages others. And those incentives determine who eventually gains influence. Let's start at the beginning. From a very young age, people are trained to succeed by following instructions. In school, success means completing assignments, memorizing information, meeting expectations. You are rewarded for reliability. You are rewarded for compliance. But you are rarely rewarded for questioning the structure. Later in life, that pattern continues. Work harder, meet deadlines, follow procedures, be dependable, and if you do everything correctly, you are told that eventually things will work out. But success inside that system often means something very specific. It means becoming a more efficient participant, a better employee, a more reliable contributor to the structure itself. And while that can provide stability, stability is not the same thing as control. Control belongs to the people who design systems, not the people who simply operate inside them. Once you understand that distinction, your perspective begins to shift. You begin realizing that there are two very different ways to move through life. One way is participation. The other way is strategy. Participants follow systems. Strategists study them. Participants focus on effort. Strategists focus on structure. Participants compete for opportunities. Strategists position themselves where opportunities naturally appear. This shift in thinking may seem small, but over time it creates enormous difference in outcome, because effort alone always has a ceiling. There are only so many hours in a day, only so much energy a person can spend, only so many tasks one person can complete. Strategic thinkers understand this limitation. So instead of simply working harder, they begin studying leverage. Leverage is what allows small actions to create large outcomes. And leverage usually comes from systems. Think about the structures that shape the modern world. Businesses are systems. Technology platforms are systems. Financial markets are systems. Once created, these systems continue producing results long after the original effort occurred. That's why the people who design systems eventually gain enormous influence, not because they work harder, but because their effort scales. Most people never reach this level of thinking because they remain focused on activity. They measure productivity by how busy they are, how many tasks they completed, how many hours they worked, But busyness is not the same as leverage. Busyness keeps you moving. Leverage moves the system. Strategic thinkers begin asking different questions. Instead of asking, how can I work harder? They begin asking, where does leverage exist? Where does a small action create large outcomes? Where do decisions influence entire systems? Where can positioning change the result before the work even begins? Those questions change how someone approaches life. Instead of chasing activity, they analyze environments. Instead of reacting emotionally, they observe structures. Instead of competing inside crowded systems, they search for positions where leverage exists. And once they find those positions, they move deliberately, not quickly, but strategically. Because when leverage is involved, speed becomes less important than positioning. Position determines outcome, far more than effort ever will. This is why powerful people often appear calm. They are not chasing every opportunity. They are waiting for the right position. Because once the position is correct, the outcome becomes far easier to achieve. Most people spend their lives climbing ladders, but they rarely ask who built the ladder or where the ladder actually leads. Strategic thinkers ask that question early. Sometimes the ladder leads exactly where the system wants you. Sometimes the ladder leads nowhere. And sometimes the smartest move is to stop climbing altogether and build something new. That realization is where real strategic thinking begins. Understanding the difference between participation and control. Understanding the difference between effort and leverage. Understanding the difference between reacting to systems and positioning yourself within them. Because once you begin seeing structures clearly, your decisions change. You stop chasing every opportunity. You stop exhausting yourself inside systems that cannot produce leverage. You begin selecting environments. You begin studying incentives. You begin positioning yourself where effort multiplies instead of decays. And slowly over time, those decisions begin to compound. At first, the difference is small, almost invisible, but over years, the gap becomes enormous. The person who understands the system moves differently inside it. They are less surprised by outcomes, less reactive to changes, more deliberate in their choices. Because they are no longer guessing, they are observing, analyzing, positioning. That is the real shift, not rejecting the system, but understanding it clearly enough to move intelligently inside it. Because once you understand the structure of the game, everything changes. You stop playing blindly. You start playing strategically, and that is where real power begins. Now here's the part most people never realize. The system does not need to defeat you, it simply needs you to keep playing the wrong game. If you spend your life chasing effort inside structures designed to absorb effort, the outcome becomes predictable. You stay busy, you stay responsible, you stay reliable, but you never gain real leverage. And leverage is what separates survival from control. The uncomfortable truth is that most people never question the structure they are operating inside. They assume the path they were given must be the correct one, because everyone around them is following the same path. But large groups of people can move in the same direction for decades and still be heading toward the wrong outcome. History is full of examples where entire generations followed systems that quietly limited their freedom, not because the system was evil, but because the incentives inside it rewarded participation more than independence. And once you see that pattern clearly, something important changes. You stop measuring success the way most people measure it. You stop asking how hard you worked this week. You stop asking how busy you were this month. You begin asking different questions. Where is the leverage? Where are the structures that multiply effort? Where are the positions where small decisions create large outcomes? Those questions change how you approach everything. Instead of chasing approval, you begin studying systems. Instead of reacting emotionally to opportunities, you analyze them strategically. Instead of competing in crowded environments, you begin searching for positions where leverage exists. And once you find those positions, the game begins to look very different. Because leverage changes the rules. Leverage allows one decision to influence many outcomes. Leverage allows one system to produce results repeatedly. Leverage allows one position to generate opportunities automatically. And that is why strategic thinkers appear patient. They are not moving slowly because they lack ambition. They are moving carefully because they understand the structure of the game. Once your position is correct, effort becomes far more powerful. But if your position is wrong, effort becomes endless. That is the trap most people never escape. They work harder every year inside environments that cannot produce leverage. They climb ladders that lead to the same place everyone else is climbing toward. And they wonder why the outcome never changes. Strategic realism forces you to confront something uncomfortable. The path most people follow does not lead to control, it leads to participation. Participation can provide stability, but control requires leverage, and leverage requires strategy. That is why understanding systems is so important, because once you see the structure clearly, you stop reacting to the game. You start positioning yourself inside it. And once that shift happens, the future begins to look very different. Not because the system changed, but because you finally understand how it works. This channel is about strategic realism, how power, leverage, and long-term thinking actually shape the real world. If you found value in this, share it with someone who still thinks in weeks. And if you want more long-term strategy like this, subscribe to the channel.